Hi, today we continue our prompt engineering journey and we're going to look at some examples of how to use prompt engineering and prompts. So let's get started. So you may remember from last session that we talked that a prompt usually has an instruction, a context, input data, and output indicators. And I've marked them in these different colors. So instruction is red, context is blue, input data is orange, and output indicator is green. And as we go through the different prompts, I'm going to show you how we're utilizing the output indicators, input data, instruction, and context to really utilize the capabilities of prompt engineering. The first thing I want to talk about here is iterative. What I mean by this is prompt engineering is an iterative process. There is no such thing as the top 10 or the best 10 prompts and all that stuff that we're seeing all over social media. It's not true. The best prompts are the prompts that are made for your specific use case and your specific domain. So you need to iterate to get it right. There is some templates to get you started, some ideas to keep you thinking, but there is no such thing as the top 10 prompt engineering prompts, for example. So let's talk about this. I have my book, which I published on Amazon, written by AI, and I asked ChatGPT, I told it your task is to help a marketing team create a description for an ad campaign based on the description of the book, which I extracted from Amazon, and write a description based on the information provided. Now, if I continue and see what it's going to do, you'll see that it's actually doing it, but it's writing a very long description. That's not really what a marketing ad campaign should look like. And one other thing that's important to note is that I didn't have an output indicator. Now let's try this again by adding an output indicator here. So I use at most 50 words and let's see what happens then. So let's again see what it's going to do. So here it says join Maya and her magical AI unicorn on enchanting adventures and so on and so forth. And this is exactly what iteration means. You learn as you progress. You always keep in mind these 4 pieces of your prompt, but at the same time you iterate until you get it right. The second thing we're going to look at is text summarization. And what we mean by text summarization is if I have a big context like this is a blog by OpenAI about ChatGPT, and I want it to be summarized. This time I chose to summarize it for a second grade student. So summarize the details is my instruction. For a second grade student is my output indicator, and this is my context or my text. So let's get started and see what it's going to do with that. So let me play the video and zoom in. And you'll see here it's starting to write this for a second grade student. So it's talking about how this blog post talks about that you can turn off chat history, and this will make the computer or OpenAI not use your data for teaching it, and how you can actually say or export your data through an email. I'm going to use the same content, but this time I'm going to say in 20 words and stuff for a second grader, and let's see what it's going to do. So again, I've only changed the output indicator here, and let's see how my output will change. So here you see it's a much shorter sentence that just says ChatGPT now allows disabling chat history, not using conversation for training, introducing ChatGPT business subscription, and an easier data export option. So again, it was able to do that by just changing my export indicator. Continuing on, the second way we're going to look at, so we talked about iteration, we talked about text summarization. What we want to look at now is explaining something. Again, if it's knowledge that it has, it can explain it really well. So I have here explained neutrosophy to a second grader. I didn't know what neutrosophy means, but it definitely did help me understand what it meant by looking at this. So, hey there, buddy. Neutrosophy is a big word that helps us understand how some things can be true, false, or somewhere in between, all at the same time. Imagine if you're happy, sad, and excited all at once. Just like that, neutrosophy helps us explore different ways to think about things. And it is a part of mathematics and computer science where instead of fuzzy logic, which is more binary, neutrosophy is talking about where it doesn't have to be true or false only, which is a good explanation for a second grader. Now, I said the same thing, explaining neutrosophy to a computer scientist. Again, the only thing I changed is my output indicator, and let's see how it's going to respond to that. So here it talks a bit more complex. So it talks about how neurostrophy is a term coined by the mathematician Florentine, and how it works and the logic behind it. And it talked in a much more complex way. So this output indicator is able to guide, and by just saying explain, it's able to guide me or explain to me something that I may not understand, whether from a linguistic perspective or because it's a domain-specific knowledge. Now, the third type we're going to look at is information extraction or inferring. So, for example, I have this long text here, and what I'm saying is I want to determine 3 topics that are being discussed in the following text, which is delimited by a triple backticks. Make each item 1 or 2 words long and format your response as a list. So again, these are my output indicators. This is my instruction and my input data, as well as my context here. Let's see what it's going to do here. So as you can see, it automatically read it and started saying it talks about chat history control, ChatGPT business, and data export, which is, again, this is what we've seen from that blog previously. This is also another way where you can do information extraction and explaining together. So the following is a list of companies and the categories they fall into. Apple, Facebook, FedEx, and then I said Apple category, and that's all I wrote to it. And it was able to say Apple Technology Electronics, and Facebook is social media and technology, and FedEx is logistics and shipping. And this is because it was able to explain that information because it knows these companies, and then categorize them or infer it by extracting that information from its prior knowledge. Questioning and answering is also another model that we use a lot, where we say something like, answer the question based on the context below. Keep the answer short and concise. Respond unsure about answer if not sure about the answer. And this is really to guide it or give it a way out so it doesn't hallucinate. And this is my context or the text I wanted to answer the question through. So let's see what's going to happen when I do that here. So if I zoom in here, and I said what plugins are available, and it was able to extract from the content here. The first plugins have been created by Expedia, Fiscal Note, Instacart, Kayak, and so on and so forth. Now let's ask it a question that it doesn't know the answer to. So I'm going to do the same thing, but this time I'm going to ask it about what are the native plugins that OpenAI provides. It said unsure about answer because it's not in the context. So again, this is that giving it a way out so that it's able to answer without hallucinating. Another option or another way we use it is through text classification. So classifying text into different things. So here I say classify the sentiment in these tweets, and I gave it a set of tweets. And you'll see here it was easily able to say whether they're negative or positive. You could have done that with machine learning and create a data model specifically for that. But because of large language models and their ability to do this classification really easily for simple cases like this, it's much faster and much easier to use a large language model than to actually create your own data model. Continuing on where we left off, so we talked about text classification. Now let's talk about role playing. The idea of role playing is we ultimately tell ChatGPT to act as someone. So here I say, I want you to act as a second grade school teacher. I will give you a sentence and you will explain that sentence to your students in a fun and engaging way. My first request is, what is ChatGPT? Again, I have my output. So I want my output indicator to be like a second grade school teacher. And this is my instruction. And this is my context, or my input data, which is my question. What is ChatGPT? And let's see how it's going to do that. So it said here, all right, class, gather around and listen up. Today we're going to talk about something really cool called ChatGPT, and it explains it to a second grade student. So you'll see that it's explaining it through that role play or through that scenario. Now let's take another example here where you're a marketing manager for a retail outlet. Your message should be engaging and increase click-through rate. I will give you a sentence and you will come up with a marketing message that's short and sweet, but at the same time engaging. So again, let's see how it's going to perform on that. So I'm going to zoom in again here. And I have my first request is ChatGPT as well. And the way it is discover the power of ChatGPT at our retail outlet. Unleash your creativity with AI-enhanced tools designed to revolutionize your shopping experience. Upgrade your lifestyle today. It sounds interesting. I would want to go to the retail store and understand why or how they're using ChatGPT. Transforming is something we commonly use, and it's really transforming from anything to another. So it can be translate the following to French. It's a way of transforming from one language to another, transform from one programming language to another, transform from one dialect to another, and so on and so forth. And again, you'll see here, it's easily able to translate that from English to French here. Expanding is a really interesting model, and it's quite complex. So I want to explain it with a complex scenario to really show the power of expanding. So I have here a sales AI assistant. So I gave it its in output model or output indicator to be, you are a customer sales AI assistant. Your task is to send an outreach email to prospective customers. Given the history delimited by 3 backticks, generate an email to entice the customer to purchase one of our products. Make sure to use specific details from the customer history. Use the context as a guidance to understand more about our products and what the user interacted with. Write in a concise and professional tone. Sign the email as AI sales agent. And the reason why I did that is because you can abuse these products and these AI scenarios to automate your work, but you need to also be clear to people on if this is something that is really written by a human being or written by AI. Now, this is an interesting scenario because what I've done after that is I gave it the context as customer history, and I showed how my customer navigated the website, and then I gave it some context around my organization or keywords like a glossary from my organization. And the way you would go about doing that is by integrating with your CRM system or your browsing history and CDP or customer data platform, and then you'd integrate with your glossary database, and you're going to be able to extract even that information like the customer history and the glossary directly using ChatGPT. And once you've done that, you can then expand and start asking it to create a personalized email for that user. So let's see how that happens. So again, here, I've asked it to do that, and you'll see here it's going to write this really nice email that's very personalized to the user. So it says here that you explored how we helped L'Oreal in personalizing customer experience. You also read about Shot's success in building multi-product, multi-industry digital marketing platforms with Sycor XM Cloud, and then you've shown interest in XM Cloud. So the call to action is to schedule a demo. Please reply to this email or follow this link. So you'll see that it was able to understand what the customer was interested in, what they've browsed, and accordingly was able to come up with what demo they would want to see and create that call to action to them. Again, very personalized, and a customer reading this would understand how well you understood their pain area and you're trying to solve it for them. Now, the final demo I want to talk about here is code generation. So again, one of the things that ChatGPT, especially GPT-4, is really good at is writing code. So here I wrote, create an article card that is vertical on small screen, mobile, and horizontal on larger screens. The card should contain the following: an image, thumbnail, a title, summary, the author of the article, the published date. The order doesn't have to be as above, but make sure it's screen reader friendly. Respond with HTML and Tailwind CSS. And what I'm going to do now is actually show you what it did. So it created the code here for me. I copied this code and I now see it in the browser, and it looks like a great card. Again, it's not screen reader friendly because there is some limitation in accessibility capabilities of GPT-4 specifically and GPT 3.5, but it was able to create that card for me and create good looking HTML. So thank you for watching, and as we went through, these are some of the most common examples of prompts you may need. Again, it's very iterative. You need to try out for your own scenarios. And what we're going to look at next is more advanced scenarios on how to utilize prompt in more complex scenarios, like we've seen with that, how we were able to personalize an email to each and every user. You can start doing much more complex scenarios where we add prompts to each other and make complex inferences from them as well. Thank you for watching.